Your show will go live in 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1.
Greetings, greetings. I will be forward momentarily. All is a blessing. Come on in. It is another edition of Revolutionary Hoodoo, New Orleans Voodoo Secrets and Recipes. All is truly and indeed a blessing. If you can just see beyond the veils, for it is all just an illusion and a test in one of the greatest divine mysteries of this life cycle. Welcome, welcome, Blog Talk Radio, area code 845-277-9143. Welcome, Facebook, Twitter, Periscope, my EarthCam page, YouTube, StreamYard. All is a blessing. Come on in. Come on in. I'm trying to get my Instagram going, but it's not working for me. All is a blessing. All is a blessing. Come on, Instagram. Welcome, welcome. Greetings and salutations. Beloved cousin, Lakithia, welcome. Thank you for being present with us. All is a blessing. I'm trying to bring my Instagram in, but my camera is not facing the correct direction. Here we go. Greetings, greetings. I know it's been a while, but I had to find a way to bring Instagram into the conversation. Welcome, Instagram. I won't be very present in chat, but I'll be live with you here for a moment for another edition of Revolutionary Hoodoo, New Orleans Voodoo Secrets and Recipes. I don't know what's going on with the glitter. I just don't. Greetings, Sierra. Welcome, welcome, beloved. Welcome. All is a blessing. Roger Williams, come on in. Welcome, welcome. Yes, let's go. Dark Soul Jew, greetings, beloved neighbor. Come on in. All is a blessing. Dark Soul Jew, greetings and salutations to you and yours. My beloved cousin Otun is with us. Otun, Ifatomiwa. Greetings and salutations, joy and prosperity to you and yours. Come on in. Welcome, welcome. All is a blessing. I feel like I need more light. Greetings, Instagram. Welcome, welcome. All is a blessing. We're going to talk about shadow work today. Shadow work. Greetings, greetings, Anthony X. Welcome, welcome. Ashley Allen's greetings and salutations, beloved. Greetings, greetings. Come on in. Come on in. Welcome, Cheryl O. Welcome, welcome. Good afternoon to you and yours. Divine self-healing. Welcome, welcome. All is a blessing. Shemafia Rothschild. Greetings and salutations. Alafia. Bawoni. All is a blessing. All in gratitude. Yes, let's participate. Let's join in. Let's share. I welcome my cousins, my co-hosts. I don't know what's going on with the screen, so it's got something to do with that Zoom. But I'll try and manage it. Welcome, Instagram. Welcome, welcome. Eshu Alegwana Kosi Were Awu Onlo Uto Ne Iwo Ada Afambo Osi Obatala Mi Ita Ni Ebo Nilio Aban Eshu. Eshu is the respected elder who flogs, confronts, and uncovers fools. That one versed in mysteries uses truth to own you. He causes scatter, defeat poverty. Obatala shakes rascals to have sacrifice. The owner of warnings is the one who is Eshu, Aboru, Aboye, Aboshishe, Ashe. May our Ebo reach a room. May our Ebos be accepted. May our Ebo allow what we desire to come to pass. And so we say, Ashe. Greetings and salutations, one and all, to my international viewing and listening audience. I greet you, Blog Talk Radio. Be mindful that the phone lines are open at area code 845-277-9143, 845-277-9143 for my Blog Talk Radio phone lines. The chat room is also open at blogtalkradio.com. blogtalkradio.com/the-divine-prince. You can also join us here on StreamYard, Facebook, Twitter, Periscope, almost everywhere except Instagram. I can't chat Instagram and podcast at the same time. So forgive me, I won't necessarily be able to respond right away to the Instagram chat, but you are absolutely welcome to join us. The StreamYard link by way you can meet and greet us here on webcam is StreamYard.com/ARBSTH86KS for my Instagram viewers. If you give me a moment, I'll try and find a way to pop that into the chat real quick for Instagram. But for everyone else, it's scrolling at the bottom of the screen at this time. And indeed, I welcome you. I appreciate you. I'm grateful for you. I'm humbled indeed by the showing up in the present, in the middle of your day, whatever hour it is, wherever time zone you exist right now. I'm always in gratitude for your taking time out of your day to be a part of this shared sacred space. So divine, all blessed greetings and salutations, joy and prosperity to you and yours. You are now sitting live with the Divine Prince and my co-host cousins. I am the Pan-African Spiritualist, Practitioner, Author, and Advisor, Elagun, Oloye, Hoodoo, Obeya, Okor, sharing with you in all things spiritual, mystical, metaphysical, cosmic, evolutionary, revolutionary, healing, and holistic from a Pan-African Hoodoo, world spiritualist perspective. Understanding that all is truly and indeed a blessing if you can just see beyond the veils, for indeed it is all just an illusion and a test and one of the greatest divine mysteries of this life cycle. This is my constant prayer, my mantra, affirmation, reverberation, my reiteration, and it is my ever-living reality. All is a blessing is crucial to the very foundation of my understanding, my teaching, my walk, my works, my demonstration along this divine, all blessed life path and journey. It is how I, the Divine Prince, make sense out of all that we're challenged with here in our daily existence on Mother, Father, Earth. And it is my personal place of power and understanding. The place from where I begin, the place from where I realize and crystallize all my endeavors, understanding that I and I alone create and co-create my divine destiny, and I alone create and co-create my divine, all blessed reality. And so it is. Ashe. Greetings, one and all. Welcome to another powerful edition of Revolutionary Hoodoo, New Orleans Voodoo Secrets and Recipes. I'm being joined by my cousins, the beloved Otun, Ifatomiwa. Greetings and salutations to you and yours, beloved. Come on in. Thank you for being with us. And my other cousin, Oloye, Ifawole, Oladeji, Ifatande. I got family, friends, cousins, mothers, sisters, nephews, Everybody come on in. Everybody's coming on in. And I'm indeed grateful. I'm also grateful for, you know, our community, my clients, my godchildren, my initiates, my students, my callers, and many of them as well have their mother, their grandmother, their uncle, their aunt, their niece, their nephew listening, if not actively participating in this platform. So indeed, I'm grateful. I'm grateful. I know how to listen to spirit. That's the best thing you can do is know how to listen to spirit, because sometimes your own intelligence will fail you. Sometimes your own data and research will fail you, but spirit will never direct you wrong. The ancestors will always be your first and front line of defense. So I've learned how to indeed listen to spirit. And people are excited about this topic, and I'm grateful. And please call us at 845-277-9143 if you do not have access to your webcam. Otherwise, you are welcome indeed to join us here live on cam. And please forgive me, Instagram, just give me like one more moment and I'm gonna copy and paste that into the Instagram platform while my cousins are offering you their greetings and salutations and their thoughts for the moment. All is a blessing. Come on in, Otun. Greetings, beloved.
Abo Oloye, Abo Shishe, Cousin Divine, Cousin Papa Oloye, and family. I'm grateful for being here today, as always. Looking forward to the conversation, looking forward to sharing, looking forward to the connection. I want to give huge thanks and honor, of course, to my Luo, Prince Baba, the Bayo Latona, and Oloye, Ifatoyen, Iyalode, Egbenike, Oyebola Latona of IleIfaOladeji. And I'm just looking forward to diving in. This is definitely going to be a good topic, and hopefully it'll resonate with many. And absolutely call in, comment if you have any questions, concerns, or just to share and give your perspective. We definitely need to hear from you today. So please make sure you're doing that. And that's it. Come on, cousin.
To everyone today. I greet you with prayer for our Ori, as today, as we enter in and delve into shadow work, we're going to be delving in from many different perspectives, but much of what we do in Ifa in terms of what is deemed as shadow work is specifically in alignment with Ori, as well as with our ancestors. So as we hold our head, we say, Orisami, 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 Orisanegere, 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 Oriotan Sami Kini Olo, Oriotan Sami Kini Aya, Oriotan Sami Ki Mbemeleme, Oriotan Sami in Kolemole, Orisami, 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 Alomo Ajiki Iwanamope, Ashe, Ashe. We give honor to our Ori. Our Ori, of course, is our most important Orisha. And today, as we delve into shadow work, we're praying that our Ori will be in alignment with the work that we have to do inside of ourselves that will allow us to manifest from the darkness that might be inside to the light. So today, as we enter into the shadow work, we ask that our Ori to be with us. And as such, we ask that our ancestors will also be with us. Egungun kiki egungun, egun ikaran ran fe awuko pipe. Ora so bonfone wo. Egun ikabata bango igunde bi abafa atorena le egun ashede. Ashe, ashe, ashe. So we give honor to our ancestors, the blood that runs through our vein, the blood that brings us all together. And we ask our ancestors to come with us today, to be here with us today, as we delve into some of the struggles and challenges that we might be holding onto inside, that maybe it's the challenges of those of generations past, and that those generations will now feel that they can release whatever it is that is being held on to, so that now we can fully heal it for our families, for our loved ones, for the generations to come in the future. So we have a wide range of things I believe we'll be talking about with my cousin. So I look forward to everybody sharing and growing with this together. So blessings to each and every one of you.
Ashe.
Hey, you're on mute, Divine.
Please forgive me. I got a lot of technology going on right now, y'all. So give me a second. I need somebody to help me figure out how to prevent my phone from ringing and Skyping while I'm actually doing a live broadcast on Instagram, because it breaks up the Instagram feed. And please forgive me, this is the first time I'm trying to use Instagram with the podcast in like several months. So I'm a little rusty on my podcast etiquette.
See if your phone has a do not disturb mode. Maybe.
Yeah, I just turned that on. I'm hoping that works and that'll prevent it from interrupting the Instagram feed.
Mm-hmm.
Indeed, shadow work is a popular topic. I get questions almost daily about shadow work, not just from clients or callers, but friends, family have questions about what is shadow work, what shadow work is, how do I figure out what my shadow work is, how do I figure out where to focus my energy, if you will, as it relates to shadow work. And then questions, of course, how do I then do that work? How do I then address, shadow work? So I want to talk about and answer, those questions. I also want to entertain the questions of our community, our co-host, Neophyte Bokur, my cousin Oloye, my cousin Otun, my cousin, family, and friends who are in the chat. Please be a part of the conversation. And Instagram, I'm going to figure it out in a minute how to. Okay, wait a minute. Maybe if I open another tab. No. How do I get my live feed? Oh, here we go. Okay. I don't know how to mute that. I'm still trying to figure out a way to communicate by chat with Instagram while the podcast is running without background noise. So I'll figure it out. But I want to talk about and answer those questions. What shadow work is, how do we identify shadow work, how do we address it, and of course tools. My cousin Oloye is going to give you a great deal of information about Ori, and Ibori and other forms of addressing the head and the consciousness. I want to kind of talk about quartz crystal. I believe it's divinely created, uniquely created in creation to address a number of issues as it addressed to energy, light, balancing our earth bodies with our spirit body or our spirit elements. So I want to share some information about how I use and apply quartz crystal, clean, uncut, unpolished, faceted quartz crystal, natural quartz crystal. Clusters are great, for breaking up groups, for breaking up blockbusters of energy. But I want to speak more specifically about individual points, double terminated points, sometimes tabbies, tabulars, twins, and how I use them to address shadow work. And of course, Otun, will bring that fire and that iyami, as she does so easily, I might add, and she'll bring her opinion to the show. I hope IG can hear everybody clearly. Of course, you can see me and hear me, but I hope you can also hear the co-hosts as are participating in the show. And over time, I'm going to play around with the camera. I might actually turn the camera towards the computer, if that might help Instagram to sort of see and hear what's going on better. But it's going to require some kind of stand where I can elevate it. The way I have it now, it's just not going to work. Hey, Mom, greetings. Thank you so much for always being present with us. We certainly do appreciate you coming through. So what is shadow work? Shadow work, in my opinion, because I don't want to speak for everyone in the group, shadow work are indeed those things that hide in the shadows. Now, for my regular participants who've been listening for the last, 2 or 3 shows, we've talked a great deal about dimensional space, string theory, M theory, how our reality is really a intra-dimensional reality, which gives us access to more than just time, space, or height, width, length, depth, but indeed an ability to create and recreate the reality that mirrors our best interest, first in the spirit realm, and then to pull that down into our waking everyday reality. Now, in some way, all world religions really speak to that at its basic roots, whether it's prayer, whether it's through mantras and meditative techniques, whether it's through ritual practice, whether it's through physical movement of energy in some sort of athletic or therapeutic sort of vein. There's always a way to sort of move energy around in our reality and bring balance to it in a way that mirrors our best interests, that mirrors our best image, if you will. I want to also briefly talk about dark matter, dark energy, which science still really hasn't fully grasped or put some kind of understanding to. But I believe through usage of quartz crystals, gemstones, and other minerals and techniques that I've used and developed over the years, that dark matter energy is really indeed that, not only that is unknown to us, but all of that anxiety, all of that darkness, all of the wickedness, all of the insecurity, all of the ego, all of the aggression, all of that exists, in my theory, within the dimensions of that dark matter. So understanding that all energy was created at the Big Bang, all energy that will ever be in the universe is already here, and according to science, and was said to have came about during that great Big Bang, that explosion of light and energy particles, then indeed all negative energy, if we choose to use that term negative, all positive energy exists. But the idea for us as gods having a human existence is to create balance, is to bring balance. So when we talk about shadow work, there's never a point, and I shared this with someone yesterday, I can't remember right now who it was, but there's really never a point where you sort of remove that thing, that person, that place, that thing, which sets up that shadow work issue within our lives. What we can do is shine light on it, draw the curtains back on it, open the door on it, open the closet on it, and infuse it with light, and then that shadow begins to lighten and lighten and lighten, and it gets much more lighter. And for those who've been using quartz crystal, for many years, you might understand what I'm talking about. There are varying degrees of light in quartz crystal. Some crystals are not as clear as other crystals. And I think this is representative of us, our own spirit body, our own light body, and our ability to fade shadows over time. Because see, that to some degree is what happens in the natural quartz, is you will have smoky quartz, Sometimes you'll have rose quartz, which is pink. You'll have amethyst, which is purple, but it can be lightened over time. It can also be lightened through exposure to light. So keep your colored stones out of direct sunlight. That can bleach them over time. You're also seeing stones that should have color, deep pink, deep purple, that are also now getting lighter in color due to just a lack of availability. A great deal of these stones are being overmined, overused, over commercialized. And so some of our better faceted stones indeed are either being industrialized or, already somewhere, out in the market. But I digress. But the symbolism of the color and the light, the balance of sun and moon, the balance of earth and spirit, has everything to do with how we sort of do the work of addressing shadows. But what is shadow work? What is the shadow? How do we identify that as the individual? How do I myself determine if I have shadow work to be done, and what is it? Now, first, I want to acknowledge that we have an international audience. We have people from all over the world with varying degrees of understanding, exposure, and experience to the Middle Passage. But we also have a great deal of this audience who are descendants of the Middle Passage and Mid-Atlantic slave trade. And indeed, if you are a descendant of the Middle Passage, the Mid-Atlantic slave trade, if you are indeed of indigenous root, you like to say your people were here when the colonizers got here. Okay, then you have also endured sort of the footprint, if you will, of the Middle Passage and the Mid-Atlantic slave trade. And so indeed, you have shadow work inherently already in your blood. It was my nephew, Chef Tink, that I had this conversation with yesterday. It's already in your blood. We talked about trauma that may not have been inflicted on you directly. Slavery, we might say, well, I wasn't a slave. My parent wasn't a slave, but your great-grandparent was, your great-great-grandparent was, and it's now in your blood. And science supports the idea that ancestral memory survives in the blood. So indeed, unchecked shadow work, unchecked trauma, drama, hurt, abuse, misuse, that is not healed, that light has not been shined upon, that has not been brought out of the depths of denial and darkness and the dark matter space, it becomes dark energy. And that then transfers generationally. Now, like certain health conditions, like certain gifts, that can skip a generation. Well, one generation might be extremely musical. And then, the next generation, you might not see any musicians at all. The grandfather, the grandmother, the great-grandmother might have all been athletic, but then you have one child that's not athletic, that's theatrical or intellectual or manifest some other, energy. So indeed, trauma, as well as gifts, can skip a generation, skip an individual in our blood, just like we accept biology as being able to skip a generation. Hair color might skip a generation or two. And all of a sudden you got a child with light eyes, or darker skin than some of the other family members. So indeed, trauma, generational trauma, can set up an inherent or hereditary need for doing shadow work. And then there's, of course, our personal life path, not just as humans, but as a soul, as a spirit. And so for those of us who understand reincarnation, for those of us who understand that maybe we've had more than one reality, in this earth realm, we also may be coming to work out shadows from past lives, shadows from previous existences. So how do you identify the shadows? I've said this before here on the show, but in a very different way. When I wake up, when I'm first aware in the morning, and I understand that not everybody listening is able to do that. Some of you all have children, pets, alarm clocks, work schedule, and you might get up to an alarm clock. You may not be able to just wake up, sleep as long as you need to, and then wake up naturally, which is the natural way. We would have done that back in the day. We would have rose with the sun. Many of us, our great grandparents, got up at sunrise. Many people here in New Orleans get up between 4:30 and sunrise in the morning. So waking up naturally, having had the right amount of sleep, having had the right amount of hydration, the right amount of food and nutrition, you know, the day before, and not just jumping up out of the bed, but first just being aware that you are coming back into humanity, that you're coming back into your physicality, even before you open your eyes. And the first question I ask is, how do you feel? How do you feel? And I ask it in the third person. How do you feel? I say it just like that, but I'm talking to myself. But I'm doing it internally. I say, how do you feel? I pause, I breathe. How do you feel? And then depending on that answer, that's your first sign of whether you have shadow work to be addressed or not. Now let's be clear, because my nephew really helped me to figure out the dynamics of how we're going to do this conversation today. The things that I would have normally forgot to pay attention to. You got to be honest in doing shadow work. If somebody listening to us right now say, oh, I ain't got no shadow work, I ain't got no problems, you know, I had a perfect childhood. Great. I hope I've laid out that there are other ways for us to sort of take on shadow work from other lives, other incarnations. I pray I have. But there are those who might say, okay, I don't have. So being honest and being able to be truly honest, not with me, not with my cousins, not with my co-hosts, not with your pastor, your imam, the bishop, with yourself. Because at the end of the day, it is you who are living the reality. It is you who are the God who's recreating your reality. So we've got to be willing, we've got to be able to be right gut down to the bottom, hard, honest truth with ourselves about what we're doing, what our actions are, how we're eating, how we're living, how we're treating our body temple, how we're treating ourselves, as well as how we're treating other people. So someone, for example, who might be a bit of a narcissist might have some difficulty addressing shadow work. It would be more likely than not that a narcissist would say, I have absolutely no shadow work to address. Again, especially one born as a descendant of a child of the Middle Passage and has lived a lifetime, you know, in the conditions that we still are living under in America. So I want to open the conversation up. Please come on in. Neophyte Bokur, greetings, beloved. I know you know, behind the wheel of a truck. So I want to have you come on in first, okay? Because I need you to be safe, but, you know, give us your greetings, your salutations. And then my cousins, as well as the community, will begin to speak a little bit to this question of shadow work. What is it? How do we address it? What's it all about?
Greetings, peace and blessings to everybody in the chat. More importantly, giving an acknowledgement to my elders in the room.
Speak up.
Thank you for letting me have this opportunity to speak. Peace and blessings to my elders in the room. Yeah, shadow work for us millennials, we get a lot of information coming in about what shadow work is. So taking notes off here and then applying it to what we are actually being seen or shown will actually shadow work for me personally.
My apologies, Instagram. I know y'all can't hear him at all.
Speaks to the light spectrum and how everything is energy. But what is that energy? Why do we keep calling it energy? Why do we keep using these nomenclatures, these words? Well, vibration. Everything that we know of vibrates, or it has a wavelength, including your body. What does that translate into? Well, that's where that kind of jumps over into vibration, into light. So what we see as light is only maybe a millimeter. Like, say if the light spectrum was a yardstick, what we see with our eyes is only about maybe half of a centimeter.
Right.
The rest of the light spectrum we can't see. Right. Very next highest level is ultraviolet. We can't see that, but we know we're affected by it. The next lowest is infrared. We can't see it, but we know it affects us. But so does everything else on the visual spectrum range. You go to the hospital, they use an X-ray to take a shadow picture of your skeleton. Right? But how does that translate into your life? Well, okay, you are light. You are a candle. You put out so many moons with your positive energy. The things that you do that are positive. You affect somebody here. You give them a positive word there. You do something kind for somebody there. You're putting all this light out, but that means that you're also casting a shadow. And that's where the negative energy lies. That's where all the negative things lie, including your own negative thought. Your own negative thought is still casting, or part of that casting of shadow. That right there, when you start thinking about it, you're starting to attract other entities or other people who are also casting a shadow. Now, your light with whoever you're attracted to, or partner with, or friends with, is casting also another shadow. So,
do me a favor and just try to talk just directly into the mic, because you just a little slight movement breaks up the sound, and I really need my Instagram to be able to hear to the best of my ability what's being said.
I'll do one better. I'll go ahead and put the mic on.
That might be better, perhaps.
That way we get a nice and clear sound. 1 second.
Yeah, and I like the idea that, you know, if you're standing in the light, indeed, you're going to cast a shadow. So it suggests that there has to be a degree of awareness, a degree of honesty, illumination, in order to even perceive the shadows, you know, in order to even see what might be lurking in our own shadows. Go ahead, Neophyte. Let's see if that's better.
Check. Anything? Any change? Any change?
That's better. It's more consistent. Now, could it be a little bit louder? Could you like turn the mic towards your mouth? Yeah. We can't hear you. We can't hear you at all now.
All right, how about
that?
We
can't hear you. Okay, I can hear you now.
All right, we're going to go with that setting. We're going to use the headset instead.
Okay,
I got a chance to actually, before I start my day out, I got a chance to sit down and start properly. I had a really late night, so it gives me a good time to settle in. All right, well, not to be long-winded, but I'll try to wrap it up. Because we are also producers of light, we are all pretty much prisms. We are all crystals, right? And when we're casting our light, we're also casting shadows. When it hits something else, it casts another shadow. There's where we can actually start. What are those things that trigger you? Those things that get you upset, those things that like kind of rub you the wrong way. Those things are things that you can write down in your journal or your book of shadows, popular nomenclature, so that you can actually start figuring out what kind of shadow are you casting, right? So those things that trigger you, those things that make you upset are parts of your shadow. You can start right there. That's always a good place to start. And I'll digress so that I can be respectful.
Sure. Come on, cousins. Y'all have something y'all want to say?
Go ahead, Otun. I'll come after you.
Okay. Shadow work. I would say that could also be defined as you spoke in different things, divine, with things showing up in your lives as in different circumstances that can manifest themselves. To add to that, I will say that in doing your shadow work, for those that identify with that term, as far as it manifesting in your life, it could be, it doesn't always have to be situations, as he said, things that go unaddressed. It could be things that you agreed to do or things that you're supposed to do while you're here for your ancestors. It could be any number of things. When those things are not fulfilled, when you are not walking in accordance to what you agreed to what your destiny is, that displeasure that could manifest in different ways, such as illness in the body. If you have issues in different points, I know some people follow with the chakra system. It can manifest in different parts of your body and not just be situations. So we have to really think in essence of what is the message that's coming across. And it doesn't just manifest as physical. It could be things that are happening, such as dreams, more lucid, and you're remembering more. And there are key phrases and certain things and situations that stand out more than they have. These are all different instances of spirit or your ancestors trying to get your attention. There's something that needs to be fulfilled. There's a contact that's being made because there's something that you need to understand, that you need to be seeing. And a lot of the times, the only way to accomplish that or begin that, not accomplishing, because that takes a lot of time. But as far as beginning that process, it requires honesty. A lot of the times, correcting things, correcting certain habits, being able to stand in the mirror and look at yourself truly for who you are, no one else watching, and be able to stand in front of yourself and say, this is who I am. These are the things I do. This is where I can stand for improvement. But that's hard for a lot of people to do. So it has to first begin with the willingness to go deep and look inside and accept those things that may not be pleasing, or to accept those habits that we would like to change, and actually start accepting that, acknowledging it, and then looking at what efforts could be made to start putting in changes or implementing changes in your life to bring those to a turnaround. That in essence is you beginning your shadow work, you allowing yourself to accept who you are, fully stand in that, but also be strong enough to move forward and be willing to make changes, to make the improvements, to get to the point in your life where you can start walking that walk that you're supposed to be on. Come on, cousin.
All right.
So
we begin the process from our perspective, from the perspective that I will share, predominantly from Ifa perspective, is going to be based upon, when we talk about light, it's very interesting because the first Odu out of 256 talks about that of all light. It talks much about Ori and it talks much about Obatala. So when we talk about light, we're talking about the light, of course, within, based on the and the cataclysm of the what had been deemed as the big boom. But then it is the light manifested into the universe, brought forth from the Arumale down to this realm in the development of the development of the civilization. It's based upon also looking at the development of our own personal self and our own personal healing. So when we look at this, and from this perspective of Orisha, one of the first Orisha, of course, is our Ori, the most important. Another Orisha is Obatala, but there's another Orisha that talks deeply about this, and the depth of ourselves, depth of within ourselves, is Olokun. So Those three Orisha right now, even Oshun, when it speaks about looking at the divine inner mirror within ourselves. So we look at going down deep into Olokun. We talk about now going down to a place where it's completely, what you say, dark. And when you look at that, you're also looking at Odu number 2, which is Oyeku. Oyeku speaks much about death. But then when we look at death, many people look at that and they have this big thing about death being this physical thing. But sometimes death of even on a physical side is a opportunity for the rebirth on the physical side. So now you're looking at a manifestation in that darkness of physical, mental, emotional, and of course, spiritual. So now going into shadow work is to delve into the darkness of each and every one of them. We call Iku. Iku is that of death. We call Arun. Arun is going into some would say sickness, some would say struggle and challenge. You go into those aspects within yourself. And by going into those self, you delve into each one of the components and you work through each one of those components. You have to work through them individually. Yes, we talked about Iwa in terms of honesty. Iwa says that we have to have gentle character. Gentle character within working in our shadow work says that we have to be gentle in ourselves, and that even going through some of the most difficult trials, tribulations, and things maybe that we've gone through in our life, we have to therefore learn to forgive ourselves, learn to forgive the circumstances that we've gone through, learn to even forgive the situations that we might have found ourselves in. So we have to look at what it is in those realms. So Olokun then says it is going down, way, way deep within ourselves. When we look at Olokun from another sense, it was Olokun that now has the preserving of, let's say, some of the slave ships. As they sunk down, they found slave ships all in one piece. It is said Olokun holds the knowledge of our ancestors from the generations from over in Africa through the Middle Passage to here in America. It is Olokun that holds the knowledge of our ancestors. So with that being said, Olokun then holds for us some of the generational challenges, struggles, hurts, some of the pains that they have gone through, our ancestors have gone through, that now is a part of our everyday life that we don't even understand, or we might not even reference to. So now we have to now be able to fully assess some of really the reality of what we might be going through. And then once we assess what we're going through, now develop the tools to heal that. And we talked about the principles of healing. One, in the principle of healing, is to acknowledge the injury. Two, in the principle of healing, is now that we know and we've acknowledged that we are injured, to now begin the process of going to find the right way of healing. So maybe it's going to doctor, maybe it's talking to somebody, maybe it's going deeper in your faith, whatever the case might be. Now you've gone to the doctor and the doctor has assessed the level of this injury. Now we're going into the place now that we've assessed it. We have the knowledge. Maybe he sends you to the x-ray. So now we're looking at that x-ray, and that x-ray cannot hide anything. There's nothing you can hide when it comes to the x-ray. The x-ray illuminates everything inside of yourself. Now you get this, and now you have the illumination of everything, which says your injury is right there. This is the level and the depth of it. And now we know the tools to use to now go into that to be able to begin the process of healing it. And sometimes what we find is that area that was hurt now heals to be stronger than an area that has never been hurt. So now the principles of healing in shadow work is essential in order to now get to the root of the cause and now apply the appropriate aspects to be able to get to the healing. So there's a tremendous amount when it comes to your Odu, when it comes to Orisha to work with it, when it comes to Ori to go inside, when it comes to the understanding of Iwapele, Iwarere, the gentle character and integrity within ourselves. Not saying that we're bad people, but to learn how to work within ourselves, to facilitate our healing, and to manifest the light within ourselves. So I'll give it to you. I don't want to go too deep into all that. As we go, there'll probably be more that opens up and reveals.
Yes, and we have time, but all is a blessing. I gotta answer the door. Just give me a sec.
So now the other aspect that we can talk about into healing, we can also talk about, when we talk about Obatala, we're talking about the owner of Ori, the owner of our Ori. He is the creator. So we have to look at sometimes the creation within ourselves of some of the things that we're going through, and whether we've put more energy into that particular aspect growing than if we didn't put so much of our own self into it, whether that would have kind of helped to subside. Look at our own energy inside of these challenges to see what our energy has done to either elevate it, maybe maintain it, or even to lower it, right? So our energy is essential when we're talking about it. Obatala can give us the manifestation of development, of creation, but it also brings the healing, the healing within our mind, our body, and our soul.
Yeah, some very good questions are being brought in the chat. The first one I wanted to respond to was Anthony X asked, how would, we say shadow work relates to mental illness and its many manifestations. And there's definitely, I don't want to use the word link necessarily, but one can for sure affect the other. So for example, we're not dealing with the shadows. We're not opening the drapes. We're not allowing light in on a particular area or energy, if you will, within our lives, or even within the dynamics of our family's life. Again, speaking to that which can pass down generationally through the blood, i.e. trauma. And so when that is not addressed, when God can't speak to us in a soft, still voice and you hear it, when the ancestors can't knock you on your head and you respond to it, sometimes, and I think it has a lot to do with not just biology and chemistry, but even environmental factors, people can snap, and when I say snap, I mean sort of shift again in between those dimensional spaces, of reality. And that can show up in our world as a mental health symptom. And so I think it's important. Once upon a time, I dreamed of, getting a degree in psychology, psychiatry, doing the thing that everybody was doing at that time. And quickly learned that there was a spiritual component to it that was absent, that was missing. In some cases, even repressed in terms of separation of, sort of religion and spiritual ideas and indigenous ideas with quote unquote modern medicine, modern psychology, modern psychiatry. And I found it to be problematic early on. What separates schizophrenia, i.e. from, manifesting jinn, manifesting demons, manifesting spirits. And I think it takes a really qualified individual to sort of make that distinction. And you often do not find that focus, that awareness, even a level of respect about that being important enough to be identified within the, industrial world. So, that's seen as sort of hoodoo. That's seen as witch doctory. That is treated as sort of a separate component, to mental health. And I've always believed that it's important, for sure, in addressing mental health. Sometimes it's repressed energy, repressed memories, repressed trauma that the individual cannot speak to, cannot release, cannot face. And our body, is uniquely designed to shut down, when we can't absorb certain degrees of pressure or trauma. Our brain will shut down to some degree. Our body, will go into sort of a coma to protect, our organs and our body, until some kind of, intervention can be achieved. So I think there is indeed a connection, if you will, if not some kind of a relative link between shadow work and the lack of awareness, the lack of space really to do and address that kind of work in our culture. And then how mental health issues can manifest, can show.
It also comes back to trauma. So what trauma did, you face? What trauma maybe that did you see, even at an early stage of life where you might not have been able to know that you're holding on to something? What trauma maybe did elders that were in your midst face? The generational trauma. So have you ever thought or felt a time where you're wondering why maybe you have trepidation when a certain individual, a certain group of people, a certain police or fire department, whatever the case might be, and then you have a certain level of trepidation that you never had a bad experience, and you ask yourself just why it is that you are feeling this intense feeling. Sometimes that is the key to tell you that this might not be directly your trauma, but it's the trauma that you're living from someone in the past. So now it is all about triggers. Sometimes we have to be very sensitive in feeling when a trigger hits us. And then we got to go back to examine what was it about that thing that caused that trigger, because it might not even been something that we have gone through personally. So mental health has a lot of different components to it.
It is.
There's a lot of different things, everything from off balance chemical, all the way through trauma, all the way through experience. So many different factors that it is important to be able to now, that's the reason that we say the doctor goes and starts poking at the different things, because he needs to find out just exactly where the injury is, and then to find out how deep the injury is. So now, even in mental health, it's one thing if we have a chemical imbalance. Chemical imbalance, then yes, it's great to go to the counseling, but also we need some of the Western perspective of medicine to possibly bring back a balance in our consciousness. But going back into trauma, sometimes, yes, there has to be that combination of a Western perspective and then a perspective of holistic side. So there's a lot of different components that will go to delving. Even when Otun is doing her coaching, there's a lot of different components that now she's dealing with different people and their situations and circumstances. And then it's incumbent now as coaching to now see where that point is that says, okay, we need to go to a higher level of assistance along with this that will allow for you to get all that you need.
Mm-hmm. Yes. I want to respond to 2 questions in the chat, really. Dark Soul Jua, if we haven't already, yes, absolutely. It shows up in depression, anxiety, low self-esteem, anger issues are all indicators of shadow work and a need for shadow work to be done. There's something lurking in the shadows that needs to be uncovered, discovered. Light needs to be shined upon it. It needs to be healed. It needs to be addressed. It needs to be cleared. It needs to be removed. It needs to be lightened by the application of more light. So absolutely, yes. And Alexis Williams, can we ask our ancestors to assist in clearing the shadow work that needs healing? For me, that's kind of redundant because I often sort of present a disclaimer when it comes to doing ancestor work and divination. I don't think it's possible to do ancestor work and divination, and particularly those of us of ADOS, those of us that are descendants of the Middle Passage, without shadow work. I think just in addressing ancestors, that shadow work surfaces. Just imagine putting yourself sort of in the shoes of your great-great-grandparents and imagining what they endured, what they must have lived under, you know, understand the history of the part of the country that they may have existed in at that time, the part of the world that they existed in at the time, the amount of trauma, as my cousins both have suggested, that they were subjected to, that they endured. And imagine now that that is in your blood. That's not in your blood. We didn't have to be in the bottom of the ships. We were in the bottom of the ships. It's in our blood. It's in the DNA code. It's a part of the DNA memory. And unless that is adequately addressed, it will show up sometimes as shadow work. It will show up sometimes as addictive behaviors, addictions, gambling, sex, drugs, alcohol, food. You know, it indeed can show up in depression, anxiety, issues of how we feel, self-esteem. That's why my first question of the morning before I open my eyes is, how do you feel? How do you feel? And based on how you answer that question, how honestly, how truthfully you can address that question, speaks to where you are in your shadow work, speaks to what needs to be addressed. Now, if I were to be more specific, okay, I don't feel. Okay, so your next question is why? You have to be willing to be honest. Why don't you feel? And then be honest about the response that you give yourself. Well, I don't feel because my height, my weight, you know, my behavior, my bank account, you know, be clear, you know, about what it is, but be willing to be honest enough to do this work, because it's not easy work if you're not honest. If you're easy to lie to yourself, if you're easy to conceal from yourself, this is going to be problematic work for you to do. You know, if it's easy for you to deny the truth even within yourself, this is going to be problematic work for you to do. And there are many of us who want and claim sort of independent spiritual paths. You know, no teacher, no elders. I'm just sort of reading books and doing it on my own. Okay, that's fine. And one tool where I think that can be done relatively successfully is in using quartz crystal. But again, you have to be honest enough with yourself and willing enough to read all those books and to understand the degrees of nuance that I'm suggesting when I speak of chloride quartz, phantom quartz. Phantom quartz are great for going back and forward in time, are great for surfacing mind imprints, memories from trauma, from our present lives, childhood. We block out things from childhood. We block out things, you know, depending on your age, of course. You block out things from high school. You block out things that you did, you know, in your 20s, you know, and it's something about our wiring. We're not exactly computers. So our brain has to sort of offload a certain degree of information as we continue to move forward. Hopefully, as we continue to grow, to evolve, to learn new things, and then things get just like we do in our computer. What's the word I'm looking for? Things get reduced or compressed to create more space on your computer, on your drive. It's a word for that, you know, that you can run. Of course, it probably happens manually now, but you can run automatically on your computer to compress files so that you can make more space. So our brains, you know, to some degree have to do that, to maintain all the level of information that we take in every day. So it's not, you know, necessarily a sign of weakness. It's not necessarily, a flaw. You know, things inadvertently get tucked away. Things inadvertently get forgotten about. And often the more uncomfortable, the more negative, the more unpleasant, you know, the easier it is for the human wiring to sort of tuck those things away. And then we create justifications. Well, my children don't need to know this. My children don't need to know this about my background, my past. My children don't need to know we did X, Y, and Z, you know, to bring things together. But our children, you know, and our elders are the most empathic among us in the community. And they absorb all of that energy and often all of that details associated with the energy. My grandmama was good. My grandma would give you chapter, verse, detail, you know, and wouldn't have been nowhere near the scene as far as we knew, you know, and never could understand how she did that. But she was just connected, you know, to spirit, you know, in that way. But at the same time, my mother's mother, when I say my grandmother, my mother's mother, didn't talk about herself. She didn't talk about her emotions. She didn't talk about her experiences. And most certainly, being born in 1922 and having my mother in 1942, that was the lynching season. My grandmother didn't talk about lynching. My grandmother did talk about, you know, who's that new black girl? Who's that new black family that just moved in? You know, where's that black store, you know, on such and such corner? You know, but she would not talk about trauma. She would not talk about pain. She didn't go into any detail about why she had been married 5 times. She didn't talk about the dynamics, you know, of those relationships. So I can imagine being empathic, you know, we want to imagine, you know, not just what our ancestors might have endured, but what our parents might have endured. And for some of us who've gone through traumatic events with our family members, that can be hard to do sometimes. Some of my clients don't want to talk about their mama at all. Some of my clients don't want a father mentioned in the conversation anywhere. And particularly when we, again, beloved, when we start getting into ancestral work and divination, you can't do ancestral work and divination without shadow work surfacing. Somehow the closet door automatically opens when you start inviting your ancestors to get involved in your business, to assist you in your endeavors, to intervene on your behalf, and then expect that they're not going to pull the drawers off for the truth, that they're not going to uncover, you know, what really needs to be addressed to eliminate the block, the issue of complication that often presents itself as the illusion, you know, in our lives. So you have to be just rot gut honest with yourself. You have to be honest with yourself, naked honest with yourself, truthful with yourself, in your head, in your heart, even before you can speak it from your lips. But know that it's oozing from your pores, and especially in the presence of your elders and your children. Your little babies, they're watching every move you make, every little nuance, every little white lie. There's parents in the room. I'm not a parent, and I know how true this is. I got a chat room full, I got a screen full of parents right now. Y'all know exactly how true what I'm saying is. Your kids know exactly when to pop in the room when you're talking about something on the phone you do not want them to hear. It's like intuitive and second nature. Okay. All of a sudden they need something. They got to run in. They could be outside in the yard, but the minute your voice change, your energy change, and that emits a frequency, and your children who, you know, nestle in your amniotic fluids, they feel that. They sense that. They know when you're just not being quite truthful. And some of our kids, you know, I was one of those kids, couldn't keep my mouth closed. Oh no, but didn't you say it was, you know, that I was that kid? Yeah. But I thought it was, you know, oh, that's right. That's supposed to be a secret. I was slow on secrets as a child. I was just brutally honest. And in many ways, I'm still that today, but as an adult, you know, I've learned, you know, not just maturity, but temperance. And sometimes you have to, you know, walk people into the truth. You know, even especially as a consultant, it's not always easy. Some of y'all don't make it easy for me to tell y'all truth at all. Seriously, at all. And if you saw it from my perspective of the window, that's why we start talking about COINTEL and mind propaganda and messages that are presented in our music and in our media and in our pop culture, because it's in those intimate spaces of the consultation that our truths are revealed. The truth about who I am is revealed in that moment, and the truth about who you are is revealed in that moment. And we are only as open as we are honest about our own truths, especially where the darkness lies. And we may not always be clear about the specifics. All of us in some way have talked about it being passed down through your genes, through your blood, trauma. So none of us, you know, as far as I'm aware, you know, wore chains, you know, had emanation papers. What is it? How do you say it? Manumission papers? When you got free and you bought to slavery, none of us experienced that, but our grandparents did. And then that was or my grandparents, great-grandparents did. Your great and great-great-grandparents did. And then it's reinforced again through lynching, through police killing, through, you know, crime and violence, you know, and as my cousin Oloye spoke of, that sets off those triggers. So sometimes your children inherit your triggers without actually having experienced that trauma themselves. So great-grandmama might have had a drug problem, you know, a sex problem, a gambling problem, a violence problem. And so now the parents say, oh, that's not going to be me. I'm not going to raise my kids like that. I'm not going to be like that around my kids. And you do well. But then you have a child or grandchild that's in their blood. And I need y'all to understand, this is not a fear conversation. Don't fear. Be aware. Be enlightened. Know that these things can be dealt with so that this generation that's under the sound of my voice right now can put an end to the generational curse. We can put an end to these problems. We could put an end to the things that we don't like and we don't agree with and we don't accept, you know, as a part of our reality. But we have to be honest. We have to be truthful. And sometimes biology and chemistry, and that's where our medical professionals need to be accessed, you know, need to be involved. You know, sometimes that can make it hard to see the truth. Sometimes that can make it hard to hear the truth. I can remember from, you know, when I was depressive in my young 20s and in my early teens, I didn't want to hear anything positive when I was in a depressive state. Nothing positive made any sense when you're in that dark space. So having the power to be truthful with yourself, you know, is a gift unto itself. Having a degree of sanity, you know, the old folks used to say in church, clothed and in my right mind, you know, that being a power, our most powerful gift. And it resonates with Ori. I feel like I'm talking too much. Come on in, y'all. Greetings, Instagram. Thank you so much for hanging with us and your participation. One day I'm gonna figure out a way to bring this all together. My Blog Talk Radio phone lines, thank you for listening. If you have a question or a comment, remember to press the number 1 on your telephone keypad. That'll raise your hand for me. And then I will unmute your mic. I'm probably missing a great deal in the chat. So let me go through the chat while my co-host.
Do the sisters have things they came in, Divine Self-Healing and the other sister? You know, if you have something, please say, come with it.
Come on, Divine Self-Healing. I know you bringing the EIME today.
I'm excited.
Divine Self-Healing. We can't hear you.
Yes, can you hear
You're
me?
muted. Yeah, we can hear you a little bit better now. We can't hear you at all now.
Okay, good. Okay, so he said,
Maybe
there's a delay.
There's a delay. Okay, there's a delay. So go ahead.
okay, got you. All right, I'll go ahead. So peace, everybody. I wanted to start with what you asked about, like what is shadow work and how do we move through it. But what you just said, about like being, oh, what did you say? Because it took me to the fact that we have to do more than just get over it, or do more than just be the one that doesn't indulge in the behavior or whatever that is. Like, we have to get to the root of that thing in order to transform it, to move ourselves forward. And when we talk about divination and ancestral work and things like that, for, you know, us, especially in this space, like that's the framework that we use to be able to do that. So I wanted to speak to that, because when you said that, I was like, yeah, like it's not enough to just to say I'm not going to do that anymore, because then what about your children and your children's children and, you know, everything after that. So like talking about like what shadow work is, to me, especially like with the process that I've been moving through, I feel like it's really releasing those ways of being that no longer serve us, whether they were negative or positive, because I've been finding that those things serve their purpose. And even if I didn't feel like it was a positive purpose or it was a positive behavior or whatever that is, being able to release it now, I see where it had its place, you know, whether it was a defense mechanism or something that I took on after, you know, going through some trauma or like whatever that is. So I also feel like, and this speaks to what Sister Otun was saying earlier, that shadow work to me is also like a course correction, where like maybe we have experienced things or done some things that weren't in alignment with our path, and we have to move through that shadow work in order to get back into alignment to be where it is that we need to be. And I kind of feel like that about myself, like that detour that we may think is placing us somewhere else is really still putting us right where we need to be. And so for me, and kind of what you all spoke to earlier, like the acknowledging first and the accepting of that, and then even the in acknowledging and accepting that self-forgiveness or that forgiveness of other people or whatever it is that needs to happen surrounding that release. And for me, the release has just been a lot of crying. You know, I mean, it's other things too, but it's mostly just a lot of like that physical, emotional release. But like what we were talking about earlier is that it can happen for us in many ways. It doesn't just have to be that one thing. You know, we can release these things in different ways. So I definitely wanted to speak about that. And then also I wanted to talk about something that I moved. So this kind of last night too, I was moving through something where like I've come into a space to be able to like move forward with a potential partner, and my mind was attempting to tell me you not ready. You ain't did enough work. You this, you that, like, you know, all the stuff. And I'm like, wait, hold on. No, because it was like, oh, you're not the herbalist you want to be. You're not the healer you want to be. You're not the diviner you want to be. And all those things are fine. Well, not fine in that way, like it's okay, but I'm saying it's fine as far as like where I am in my experience. We have to not let our minds put us in a space where we don't see where we really are or what we have already moved through. I'm right where I need to be. And if I let my mind and those negative thoughts and those negative perceptions, and that's that shadow work, is telling yourself no. Saying, no, I don't accept that reality, or no, I don't accept that thought about myself, or whatever that is. And that's kind of what I have to move through this morning. Like, okay, but not just saying that, but putting something behind it to where when that comes up again, you know for yourself, like, no, get that out of here. So for me, okay, you're not the herbalist you want to be, you're not the healer you want to be. Okay, you need to take some more classes. Okay, you need to get with somebody who can give you the knowledge that you feel like you're lacking or that you need. And that's what I'm going to do, so that way I can move to that space where it is that I feel like I need to be. And so when these things come up, kind of like what you were saying, Prince, about it being something that fades, every time it's a little bit less, and I can move through it a little bit easier until it no longer affects me in that kind of way. So that's all I wanted to say.
That was great. I appreciate it. The Goddess Initiative, I'm not sure, are you on screen or are you on the phone? Come on in.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So I just wanted to go ahead and speak to the, the mental health aspect. That's where I was at. As far as the shadow work, I think someone else said, at least from the mental health perspective, from the psychology, you do definitely have to address the root of the issue. And while we love to, say a lot of times, your happiness is an inside job, things being attached to your shadow absolutely can be external. And what I find, that a lot of things dealing that are attached to our shadow, those ideologies, those little things that are speaking in the back of our mind, telling us we're not good enough or what have you, that sometimes encourage us into low frequency behaviors, come from very common outside factors, like family dynamics, your parents, how your parents parent you in your household, the things that they tell you that are right or wrong, largely things like religion and just the societal constructs. Those instill, they definitely instill things into your shadow that, will cause what you may feel natural to yourself. It gives you that, is this right or is this wrong? And then also, I think you said something earlier, you're talking about the spiritual aspect, and, you said something about schizophrenics, and I was a case manager for a while for schizophrenics, and I can really testify that, a lot of mental illness, it's multifaceted and it's a lot of different layers, but if your mental illness is not a chemical imbalance, and it's not hereditary, then it's trauma induced, right? Like, for example, people who have eating disorders and body image issues, that's a direct result of sexual trauma. OCD, in which hoarding is a form of OCD, that's a result of some type of trauma. But it's absolutely also spiritual warfare. When I was working with the schizophrenics, you could literally see them going in and out like different realms, and you could absolutely tell that there were entities attached to some of them. The auditory delusions, some would be entities telling them do this, do that, and it's very, I don't know if I want to say interesting, amazing, or disturbing to see live, but it's real, so it's multifaceted. So when you're doing, your shadow work, it's very important to address the root, figure out where did this come from, because you can like speak affirmations and try to think positive and talk positive all day long, but if you're not addressing what part of that, where did that part of the shadow come from, then you're not integrating it. You're not integrating it into your whole self. You're not accepting. You're not working through that part. So in essence, you're not doing the shadow work. And in mental health, I mean, how we somewhat kind of address it is using DBT, which is dialectical behavioral training, which is a form of CBT. And that's just involves, a lot of mindfulness, because when it comes to depression, it's a mind that has a tendency to stay in the past. And when it comes to anxiety, it's a mind that has a little bit too much worry in the future. And so it's more staying in the present. Gratefulness, that's huge. I can't speak enough to gratefulness in every form of shadow work. And then as far as some tools for doing shadow work, one of the biggest tools that I think people are not aware of is the relationship that they're in with their significant other. A lot of times, your significant other is really a mirror, and the things that irritate you the most about them usually are things that are you really irritated about yourself, and it's just screaming at you. And when you're trying to practice giving your significant other understanding and empathy and unconditional love, you can really reverse that and flip that and try to do that with yourself as a form of shadow work. And then another one, which I have personally experienced my own shadow work with, is the lucid dreaming. And we were talking about the lucid dreaming on I think it was the last show or the show before that. If you know how to do it, you can really intentionally find the things that you need and get to the root of some things by doing lucid dreaming. And it works really well with your ancestral work. And that's all.
Oh yeah, I agree. But I also see lucid dreaming really as just another form of transcendental meditation.
Mm-hmm.
Just if indeed you're studying meditation, what meditation is, learning to start with, breath, your breathing, paying attention to your heart rate, and then getting more into higher degrees of meditation, guided meditations, active visualizing, setting a goal. I'm going to go into this meditation and I'm going to, leave my body and go into outer space, or I'm going to, shrink my body down to the smallest, possible, size. These are sort of mind games, if you will, that you play in terms of exercising your third eye and your spiritual mind and your ability.
It's definitely a mind game, because I don't know that people realize that your mind is not necessarily your friend. So it works to protect itself, not to protect you. So when it experiences trauma or just something displeasing to it, it takes it and it pushes it like into a closet. You know how you got company come over, you put all the crap in the closet and close the door so that like the house is clean. But if you go back to that closet, it all falls out. So that's how the mind works. So it'll take that trauma and it'll put it in a little closet. That's why you'll see people who may have experienced childhood trauma and then they get 30 and they have this nervous breakdown because that door opened. And you can use the lucid dreaming by intentionally going into that. You know how they show it, they illustrate it in the movies where they'll see someone dreaming and they're going like a hallway and they're opening up doors and they're seeing different scenes. That's what that is.
Mm-hmm. Hey, Goddess Initiative, can you speak a little bit to the importance of behavior management? Like for us in mental health, a lot of times we had two sides of the coin. We had what we called the program side, which was those of us that were working on the floor with people. And then we had the therapeutic side. So in the program side, we always had to deal with a lot of the behavior management. So can you speak to the importance of behavior management within healing as well?
Well, I mean, it's just kind of like with your kids. I mean, you have to be able to. I'm sorry, someone's calling me on my computer. 1 second. Okay.
Welcome to my world, baby. Welcome to my world.
What is that ringing? But it was my computer that was ringing it. Okay, so just like when you're I guess training your kids to how they're quote unquote supposed to behave, with other people. It's all about being able distress tolerance. Like again, like going back to DBT, it's distress tolerance, how well you can manage your behavior physically and manage your mental process under stress, your interpersonal effectiveness and your emotional regulation, where do you know how to even identify what it is that you're feeling so that you can properly respond. And I see that a lot in the schools, what's missing, I should say, in school system, public school systems. I worked in a school for a year, and there was a particular school that had a lot of kids that have autism. And then there was some schools that a set of kids that had some behavior issues. And what I was noticing is that the kids that had, they would act out, and the school would just they would put them in detention, when they call it to the principal office. They never would sit and talk with these kids and ask them, okay, so what's going on? Like the DivinePrince said, how are you today? There was this one boy, I'll never forget, he would get in trouble every day. And I just happened to be in the office when he came in one day, and I just sat and talked to him, and I found out that, his dad had been killed. His mother had a bunch of other kids. He wasn't getting the attention he needed. So the only way he can get attention would be to come and pop off at school. And I can identify with that personally because I was that type of child too. My mother had mental illness issues. She would take them out on me. I didn't feel empowered, obviously, out of respect. I wasn't going to curse her out or hit her back. So I would go to school, and the first person who looked at me sideways, I would go crazy on them. And it took a while for me to understand that didn't fix anything, so I had to work on myself, and I had to learn how to manage my behavior such that when I did get angry, that I took a minute and tried to identify, like, what are you really angry about? Who are you really angry with? And how can you work through this so that you're not getting yourself in trouble? And it's a process. It's not easy. It's a training of the mind. Like you said, it's literally like a brain workout. Is you have to be repetitive with it. You have to work at it. You have to be consistent with it, just like with anything else to achieve a goal. But I think that it's something that's really missing from, raising kids, the households, from the schools, that emotional intelligence, that learning how to understand. And I try to work with my son. He has a little anxiety. And I noticed when he was around 4 or 5, if I raised my voice, he would be twiddling his fingers. And he would also chew on things. And I said, okay. His sister's 15 years older than him. I used to yell at her a lot. I know, even though she turned out okay, I have to recognize this is where you have to come in as a parent, and you have to, take your pride down and stop feeling like you know everything, and say, okay, this is where I need to do better. This is how this is about the health of my child. And so I had to really stop and exert my own, check my own behavior. And when I discipline him, to not raise my voice. I don't whoop my kids. I'm not a parent who whoops their kids. I don't have any judgment on anybody else. That's but I don't put my hands on my kids because I just feel like that's a slave mentality. And I don't feel like I need to physically harm them to get them to do what I say. So you just have to be creative and find different ways. And with him, it was just a matter of, we had to sit down and have a good conversation about how this is not the appropriate behavior to get what you want. You have to use your words. And sometimes you're still not going to necessarily always get what you want, but it's about showing me a level of respect, showing yourself a level of respect to obtain the end result that you desire.
So then do you find now then we have to be, it's very important, even within now the next generation, we got our own challenges and struggles with all of this, with the work that we have to do to deal with the generational stuff, to deal with our own, to deal with whatever it is that we're going through. So now my question is, for the next generation to be better than us, to be more healed than us, to have their own healing, what is it? What do you think a good way to go about that is?
Well, I mean, just my personal opinion. I mean, my daughter is 24, so she's in that next generation. And I think that they already have a little bit up on us. I know a lot of people, particularly in my generation, they criticize them. But what I noticed about them, is they are a little bit more in touch with their emotions. And even if that does make them, more emo than we were, they're willing to not play that hard front. I was raised in the 90s. I come from where, you hardcore, it took me up until I'm 38. I probably didn't even cry until maybe 3 years ago, unless somebody was murdered. You know what I mean? But like, just to feel like sad and to cry, I never did it. I had to go to therapy like for 6 months, once a week, just to figure out how to cry. So I think they already have one up on that. I think that as an older generation, like, we really have to, I see so much bashing of the younger generations, and I just don't understand that. They're different. They're not like us. They're not supposed to be like us. And I think that we need to do our shadow work to see why we feel so threatened at them being themselves. I hear people all the time. My mother was just texting me the other day. I don't understand. They want to be called them, they, this, and that. And okay, you don't necessarily have to understand it, but it's a level of respect that you have to give people for what they desire and for their boundaries. And just, that's just what it is. It's really a level. It's just about letting people be who they are.
Can I jump in real quick?
Sure.
Because you just spoke to another sign of, again, the shadow work. The children now that are manifesting what the previous generations or the parents don't understand have everything to do with the shadow work associated with the parents and those who came before. Some of the changes in society that we're seeing today has everything to do with people just not wanting to bow down anymore, not wanting to accept anymore, not wanting to just be, subjugated anymore. And in our culture, we try to think of ourselves as first world and somehow more sophisticated than other parts of the world. But we still don't treat children very well in this country.
Absolutely.
And people still treat children much like their spouses, as property, or as some, sign of their own sense, of value, as opposed to acknowledging that of the children. And often decisions are made or at least said to be made, for the benefit of the kids. We're going to stay together for the kids. I put up with it for the kids. I didn't leave when I should have left for the kids, and it, again, either trickles down. I shouldn't say either. I should say it both trickles down through observed behavior, but also generational behavior through the blood. It's in the DNA now.
But isn't it interesting that you say people make those decisions, for the sake of the kids, but they often don't listen to the kids? Because if you ask kids, I remember thinking at as early as maybe 4 or 5 years old that my mother and father were not compatible, and I hope that you guys are never together. Like I remember, and it just wasn't a good look. And a lot of times, you actually ask the kids, they'll be like, should I stay with your dad? They'll tell you no. No, mommy, you need to go be happy. Find someone who loves you and treats you well.
That's
and
right.
I mean, I'm just under the personal belief that children are like the children and the old people are the closest thing we have to God walking on this earth. You might want to pay attention to them a little bit.
Yeah, that's right. And Arisha, I agree with you. Arisha says, this generation of young people are the absolute smartest and greatest generation to come. It's my generation that needs to look at what we handed them. And I think that's a part of, I think Craig Burns tried to use the language generational karma. And I need to look at that a little bit more off air, but I think that's kind of what, one of the phrases that he used. And so I think, if I'm understanding what generational karma might even be, that could be it. I think with every subsequent generation, there's this this sense of teaching what you know, gifting what you know, leading the children, in the direction that we believe is best. And I'm suggesting in the most perfected circumstances. Let's say everything is perfect for everybody, all parents. It's not necessarily an economic issue. If, let's say there's no generational curses. but there's still going to be that advancement that is made naturally, organically, with the generation that follows. That, you know, just like the evolution of hominids, you know, into humanity, there's always that advancement in technology, advancement in skill, advancement in awareness, while at the same time we've lost skills and we've lost abilities. We've lost some of our instincts, you know, related to the insects. We've lost some of our instincts, you know, related to the other mammals, you know, in creation, while developing, you know, our mind. And I think the goddess said it best, the goddess initiative, when she said, you know, the mind is really designed to protect itself, to protect the brain, you know, and ultimately to protect the functioning, you know, of the body. But I think our consciousness, we might even say our soul, is a different segment of our reality, of who we are. I think it transcends the body, it transcends the mind, it transcends our momentary blip in time as hominids, as humans, you know, on our journey to a higher sense of who we are and what we are. And I appreciate everybody in the chat here. Y'all are asking great questions. Everybody is asking, you know, really, really good questions in the chat, and we appreciate that.
I think Neophyte had something he wanted to say.
Yeah, just a few things. I mean, because we're definitely going in on this topic, and it's greatly appreciated. But my 2 cents is, there's still these small pieces of shadow work that keep slipping past, and I think at this generation, our children's generation, right now, we're starting to get into those finite shadow work pieces that are still lingering, right? Generationally, we've been breaking these chains and whatnot, but the smaller things that we find in our everyday life are the ones that are being challenged right now. Those are the ones that I think are the ones that hurt the most. Take, for example, being home by the streetlights. We know this. We know where that comes from. We had to be home by the streetlights because we lived in our grandparents lived in a sundown town.
That's right.
Right, and it gets passed down to where we don't know what a sundown town is. Well, a lot of us don't know what that is. Me personally, I do, but when we come to that wall, then you have to explain what that is, and if they don't know what it's like to live in there, then that's where that chain comes to be challenged and where it needs to be broken. I'm getting a little feedback on my end. I think maybe somebody might need to mute, possibly. Okay, but continuing on, we also have that found in our food as well. I mean, everybody loves chitlins. Everybody loves it. Gotta have it. But where did that come from? It came from being given the scraps, things of that nature, to be able to survive. We needed that. We needed to be able to take those things that were considered to be scraps and turn them into things that were sustainable. We wouldn't be here had it not been for those elders making whatever they had sustainable for us. But it also is a piece of shadow work that is coming to a head where it needs where the pattern is being challenged, right? Do we keep it or do we throw it away? Do we use it or do we hold it in reference? Or what do we do with it? What do we do with those things that are still triggers that we don't even know are triggers? When you are in a circle of your peers, black folks, you get into a circle and whatnot. We're talking about white folks. We tend to get quiet. We start whispering about white supremacy and things of that nature, but we don't realize that we're even doing it. We can't speak it out loud, but this next generation speaks everything out loud, including that. These sort of things that kind of manifest themselves in our lives, and we're not even aware of the fact that we're challenged by it, and our next generation is definitely challenged by it. And it's going to be their responsibility to break it. Did we equip them with enough tools to be able to do that? Shadow work is a start. Shadow work, in my personal opinion, is only the doorway in which you need to walk through and then begin to work. The shadow work itself, you need to be able to cross through that threshold and start actually working. So my generation, I'm speaking to my generation, don't just walk up to the door with your journal and whatnot, thinking that you're doing the shadow work. Walk up to the door, cross over the threshold, and challenge those things that are triggers. Challenge those things that you write down into your notes. I wrote it down in my dream. It kept reoccurring in my dreams. I woke up and I was waking up in a cold sweat. I don't even remember why. You go back into your lucid dreaming, and you start finding these little details, and you bring them out to where you're starting to wake up and, oh snap, I'm still dreaming. No, you write them down, and then you go challenge. Why is it that those things are challenging me? Why are those things triggering me? Why do I get upset when my loved one says this or says that? And face down the fear.
Yes.
Face it down. Look at it. Don't turn away from it. We've already turned cheeks. We've turned the cheek. I mean, the Bible, Christianity keeps telling us turn the other cheek. Yeah, well, you only got 4. So when you run out of cheeks to turn, then what? I mean, turn left, turn right, turn the other 2. I ain't turning the other 2. But face down those things that challenge your everyday living. You go to work, your boss is speaking to you in a manner that just doesn't seem quite right, like he's trying to speak to you in a slang that he has no idea where it comes from. It just sounds awkward. Why does that trigger you? First off, he doesn't know what it's like to walk through our shoes, and he's trying to speak to us in a vernacular that is relating to us, but he cannot relate. Why does that trigger you? Here it is. Here's why. Work it out. I mean,
I like how you brought up, the whole sundown thing, which for some of our younger listeners, that exists from a time of really my parents and my grandparents who couldn't, either couldn't pass through certain towns at sundown and be Black, or couldn't come out on the street in their own town past sundown and be Black. Again, we could associate that to lynching and lynchings of the past, but the triggers have continued in how we now view some of our relationships with the police in some of our communities. So now parents are scared, before sundown, is my child gonna make it home? Is my child gonna have a problem on the highway? Is my nephew gonna have an issue driving between Louisiana, Mississippi, and St. Louis, Missouri, with the police, in the middle of the highway somewhere, without any witnesses, that trigger still lives on. Some people even suggest how we are policed has everything to do with the creation of the police, which primarily goal was to capture slaves and return them, to enslavement, the paddy rollers and such. So we indeed inherit certain traumas and certain energy that requires or can show up and manifest as shadow work indeed in our lives. And some of the more egregious energies indeed can show up, not only in mental health, but I think it was Otun that suggested even in other health, related issues, so it doesn't affect you necessarily emotionally, or so you think, but you might be a certain number of pounds overweight. You might have other, issues going on with the organs, in your body. You might be suffering certain health conditions, that are said to be, environmental, but somehow look generational, You know, like asthma, for instance. You know, as a child, I don't remember every other child having asthma when I was a kid. Now it seemed like half the classroom have asthma. Peanut butter allergies. I don't remember kids having peanut butter allergies when we were a kid. Everybody ate peanut butter when we was a kid. You know, so where are these now new, you know, diseases and imbalances originating from? So yes, it's the food, what we're putting in the food, how the food is grown, you know, how the foods are processed. But we had to look at our spiritual food in the same way. What kind of food did your grandparents eat? What kind of food did your parents eat? And what now, in terms of genes, are passed down to you? You know, something that's real obvious to me is when I look at certain ethnic groups, you know, Asians, and particularly Asians that, you know, quite often I think of as being fit, if not thin, you know, and somebody might argue, you know, poverty, you know, other conditions that might exist in, you know, in that part of the world. But you then see that first generation, you know, or second generation of Asian American born children, and now you see this weight gain, and you see this bulk, and you see this development of very Western-like diseases. So some things, yes, are, you know, sort of picked up behaviorally, learned behavior, bad behaviors, you know, that somehow become tradition, that somehow become fad, that somehow become cute. And then, you know, a generation or two later on, we decide, oh, wait a minute, that was really dangerous, or that's not good for us. And then we remove it, we stop doing it. You know, I grew up in the day of cigarette commercials on TV and magazines and newspapers. Everybody had a cigarette in their mouth. But then I grew up in a period where cigarette advertisements were outlawed. So nobody was allowed to smoke on TV. You still don't really see, you know, cigarette ads for the most part, you know, in a lot of publications and magazines. So I've seen sort of that shift generationally in consciousness and awareness. So how much light, we use light sort of as a symbol, as a euphemism, you know, light, how much light is shown on something absolutely affects, as Goat Rider was suggesting, not only our ability to see behind us, to see what's hidden from us, to indeed see our shadow, which is being cast behind us. And so that's when that 360-degree consciousness comes into play. I think that's also somehow embedded in the principles of Ori and Ibori, though it might not be as literal in its pronunciation. But the idea that there's a place in our growth that we can go where we can see three-dimensionally, fourth dimension.
We got to also like look at, you know, we were talking about Ori. How do you then help yourself to develop clarity within your Ori and your thinking in your mind? And there's a couple of things that are easy that you don't have to be a practitioner to do. One is that you can put your intent and your prayers into water as you are praying for that which you want. When you pray into the water, then you can ingest the water, which means you are internalizing what you have prayed. Another thing you can do is that when you're praying into the water, you can use like your left hand or so and take some of the water and then place it on your head and then drink the water. So you're cooling your Ori, you're cooling your head, and then you're ingesting the water as well. Another thing that you can do is when you get up, and another thing you can do is like when you get up in the morning, an easy one is before you even get out of bed. It's kind of similar to what you did, Divine. But before you get out of bed is the time to be giving thanks and honoring Spirit for allowing you another opportunity to be here, to be blessed, to be a blessing to others. Sometimes we don't understand how that also helps to bring clarity. There was a question that I saw that asked about meditation. And is meditation a good way to be working on our shadow work? And indeed it is. But meditation with intentionality. So making sure that when we're meditating, that there is an intention to our thinking inside of the meditation. And so that we are then going into the manifestation of what it is that we're wanting to heal from, what we're wanting to manifest for ourselves and for our family and everything, because then that's putting into the atmosphere, into the universe, what it is that you wish to manifest. It also helps to clear your own thinking in your own mind, because at least you're taking some time to intentionally think of what it is that you want. And then in that, many times, the thing of if something is not in alignment, it will be shown to you. It will be told to you. That message will come to you. So I think that working with our Ori, or working with our divine upper inner conscious, our higher self, in those ways can assist us to bring a clarity that brings alive some of the things that we're going to have to work with in our what is deemed as shadow work. You're on mute. Mm-hmm.
Yes, absolutely. Again, being willing to ask those questions and to be honest about our answers about the questions, and to be willing to probe deeper. You know, in a way, it's sort of an inverted therapeutic process. It's much like with our professional therapists, consultants, ministers, doctors are sort of trained to talk you through, to walk you through. But at the same time, I understand that we live in a time where people don't want to go to the outside source. People believe they can do it all on their own. And I'm not suggesting that you can't. I'm just suggesting that it's a lot of work, and you have to be willing to be absolutely honest with yourself during the process. Otherwise, you can't see, you can't hear, you know, what you're not willing to address. I think too, when we think about meditation, when we think about transcendental meditation or guided meditation, or even Tai Chi, you know, yoga, you know, there's more than just, as my cousin said, you know, intentionality. There's more than just, you know, breathing and just going blank involved in that process. And indeed, if you're not given instruction about what to think about, what to visualize, you know, during that process, your mind can wander. You know, I'm sure my cousin deals with that, you know, in a class, whether it be young people or even adults. If you don't give them something to focus on while they're physically going through the motions, then your mind is wont to wander. Your mind is sort of configured to wander. Your left brain is being guided by very overt and direct and specific instructions. You know, you're writing, you're running, you know, you're exercising, and that's all left brain activity. But your right brain is more etherical, more elusive, the dream state, the intuitive state, the spirit state, the emotional state. And so that's why when you start doing exercise or start doing yoga or any other practice, you start remembering the bills you forgot to pay. You remember that you left something on in the oven. You know, you start thinking about things in the house that you forgot to do, because your right brain is now free to sort of explore and wander in that spirit space. So thinking is important to the process, and not just thinking and remembering and repeating the trauma, but often we lose things that happen before the trauma, good things, and well after the trauma, because now all we can think about is the trauma. So sometimes the reoccurrence is not just to bring you back to that traumatic moment, but to expand our ability to stand in that space and to stand in our feelings in that space, and then recall all the good records that existed leading up to that, who we were before that, how we felt about the world before that. You know, I was quite a talker as a child. I could talk to anybody as a child. I could walk up to any stranger without any reservation as a child. I didn't care who you were, what you looked like, you know. And now, after my life, you know, of trauma, you know, I'm very cautious about people. I'm very worried of people. But at the same time, my intuitive perceptors have been heightened. So now I'm often leading on intuition. I am leading on feeling. I am taking the second or two to like a radar to scan, you know, your energy field before I approach. And it comes with exercise, practice, a history. Somebody said recording, you know, is very important, you know, in the process. Oh, wow. I didn't realize we talked through 2 hours of show. I certainly appreciate everyone. Divine Self-Healing, Otun, Ifatomiwa, my beloved cousin, the Goddess Initiative, my beloved cousin Oloye, Ifawole, and of course our listeners and our participants, you know, in the chat and abroad. We certainly appreciate you for participating in the show, for being present for the show, for those who stuck with us the whole time. We still got people on the phone lines. Area code 404. Did you have a question or a comment? Greetings. Yes. Oh, Sharafia. Mm-hmm. Oh, wow. Yeah. 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 That's right. Area code 818. My apologies for the delay. Area code 818. Do you have a question or a comment for us? Yes. Greetings. Who's calling and where are you calling from? Oh, okay. JP Terrell. Greetings, beloved. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. JP, hold on for a second, because we're having a problem. Apparently, they cannot hear you, and they want me to relay what you're saying, but you're saying so much that it would be it would be real difficult for me to relay to the, especially at this point, what you're saying, or what you have said. So I'm not sure what's going on, because I don't think we've ever really had this problem before. Because for me, you're really loud, for me, and it's really going directly through my computer from Blog Talk Radio into the StreamYard. So I'm not understanding why the audience can't really hear you in the StreamYard. So my apologies. My apologies here. But thank you so much for calling in. We certainly do appreciate you and your attention, and what you said will be heard by the Blog Talk Radio audience for sure. And it'll be an archive in the Blog Talk Radio platform. But according to StreamYard, and so that includes YouTube and the social networks, they said they can't hear you, and I've got to figure out why. But thank you so much for calling in. All right, thank you. Peace and blessings.
I wanted to respond to Goat Rider, because he had asked a question a while ago when we were speaking about habits, and when we were talking on the line of food and different conditions passing along through the families. And he asked, how willing are we that have this understanding to confront mothers, fathers, aunts and uncles and family when their self-damaging behaviors are killing them? And I wanted to say that I can definitely speak to that, because my maternal grandmother had an issue as she got older with not being able to eat certain things and her being stubborn. And it took a long time of my mother and my oldest sister trying to work with her. And a lot of the times we have to understand that first and foremost, the elders in our family, we got to respect them. Okay, we may not like the things that they do. We may disagree with them. And yes, they may do things at times that may give us a cause for concern. There are things now that my mom does and I don't agree with, or things she may eat or drink she might see this. But my sister and I, I won't argue with my mom about it. There may be, if she asks me to get something for her, or my way of combating it is, oh, if I'm running to the store and, hey, can you pick me up a soda? And I'm like, no. And it doesn't feel good telling my mother no, but the main thing we can do a lot of the times is not be enablers, not participate. Because when you're speaking of your elders, it's all right to kind of make suggestions and to speak on things when it comes to their health or certain things that they're not doing. There's absolutely nothing wrong with doing that. But just remember, as I don't know about everyone, but the way I grew up, one of the things that my grandmother would say, it's not what you say, it's how you say it. So you must be mindful in your approach with your elders, your demeanor, your attitude, your energy. You make sure you check all of that, because believe it or not, they'll read right through you before you even get there. So make sure your mind is in a calm state, and that when you approach them, that it's coming from a place of love, but also from a place of grace, to understand that a lot of these elders are doing what they have done for so long. It's easy to be on the outside looking in and go, you need to change this, or you need to fix that, or you need to, when you've done something the same way for 30, 40, 50, sometimes 60 years, it's so much easier said than done to expect certain habits to be broken, especially when those habits have been passed down. Like with our diet and the eating of certain pork items, and there's nothing wrong if you like pork, have at it. But I'm referring to like things that our ancestors were given that were not necessarily the more savory of cuts of meats or different things that they had to either pick up that were tossed away or discarded or half eaten, or eating things like chitlins and pig feet and learning how to season and use the spices that they got from, that they grew on their own and that they found outside to kind of make things taste good and make them be palatable. So a lot of those habits are hard to break. So just remember, it's nothing wrong with speaking up. There's nothing wrong with voicing concern, showing that love, support, and letting them know they need to acknowledge these issues, but be mindful in the manner in which you approach them, and have some grace and give them that grace to understand that in the age that they are, a lot of that may or may not be able to be done.
Just say no. Prepare to get beat up, but just say no.
I appreciate you. I think this is a really powerful topic. I believe this to be a topic that deserves more than one airing, and particularly an airing where all my technology is the way it's supposed to be. I don't have glitters and stars, on the screen next to my face. So we're gonna, talk more about shadow work. We're gonna go just a little bit deeper into the shadow work and how to address shadow work. Not how to identify, but then how to address, how to indeed do the work. And I think we gave, a wealth of solutions today, directions in which people can go at, the subject of, embracing and accepting the challenge, of healing shadow work. But there's indeed so much more that we could share and discuss. And I look forward to that opportunity again with you at high noon, US Central Standard Time, next time here on this platform and many other platforms. Thank you so much, cousins. Thank you so much, Divine Self-Healing. I appreciate you all for your love, your support, your active participation. If you have anything you want to say, please feel free. Otherwise, I'm gonna close out.
We hope today, you guys were able to be blessed by just a little bit of what we were sharing with you, and that now you have a better reference point for even entering into your own personal shadow work to lift yourself up and to illuminate light into maybe what could be considered as darkness. But now, as Oloye Kumeji says, that yes, you might be in darkness, but you have the tools to manifest light. So manifest your light, do the work, and then blessings will manifest itself from the work that you're willing to do for yourself. Self-help, I thought, did you have something? I forgot. I'm sorry. Did I cut you off?
I was just going to say, just give thanks to all of you, and then just for the space, especially just during this time where we're all seeming to be moving through this like collective thing of us all going through it in our own different way. It's good to be able to express, and then also be able to get not only, like you said, identifying it, but to get the solutions too. So I'm definitely grateful for that.
Lastly, I just want to remind everyone, I appreciate you all. Love to everyone. If some of you were watching and listening and still feel that you have questions, DivinePrince has put our contact information there. Please feel free to reach out to any one of us that you feel comfortable. We are more than welcome and more than willing to help you, assist in any way possible. And blessings, love, light to all.
Ashe and Odabo.
Odabo.